G'day guys and welcome back to Freo Faithful today for the preview for tonight's game between Fremantle and St Kilda. Back-to-back Friday night blockbusters. Calling this a blockbuster is a stretch. I do feel bad for the neutral, but hey, last night we had a cracking Essendon North Melbourne game that probably shouldn't have been in prime time, but no one was expecting to be that good. So I'm hoping for a bit more of the same. To be fair, I'm hoping that we absolutely smash them. I would love this more than anything to be a statement victory, to be honest. I think we've just had quite a few... We've had a few wins where I'd like it to be more convincing. Like, even last week, those first three quarters, particularly the first quarter, was so dominant. And I just didn't love the way we closed it out yet again. There have been some fourth quarter performances I've been okay with this season, but there have been others, such as last week, where I'd really like to just put the hammer down, put the sword in. We didn't even score 90 points last week. Adelaide crept up to we kept them pretty limited for most of the game in general, but they got up to a high score that I would have liked to concede, given the position we were in at three-quarter time. So I'm hoping this is just a statement win tonight. Now, anything could happen because we've seen the Melbourne game, and for some reason, we are always playing the teams who are under media scrutiny. Melbourne that week were absolutely pounded by the media. This week, it's St Kilda's turn. To be fair, last week it was us who was under the media scrutiny, and we responded with a win over Adelaide. So these teams are tending to respond. I'm hoping it's not the same here. In terms of these teams' previous record against each other, it literally alternates. Freo won last time out at Marvel last year. I was at that game. It was one of the worst games I've ever attended, but 4 points is 4 points. Before that, it was St Kilda. Then before that, it was Freo. Then before that, again, it was St Kilda. So it alternates. I'm hoping it doesn't alternate this time and we can pick up back-to-back wins over them. But this is certainly an interesting affair. We're slight favourites on the odds, but it's not a big favouritism. Let's take a look at the team news that dropped yesterday. The Saints have made 3 changes. Mason Wood's out injured, which is a big win for us considering he is very crucial to the sort of their forward makeup. And they'll be going in even more undersized than they already are down there. Zach Jones has been omitted, as has Isaac Keeler. And 3 interesting ins. Liam O'Connell's back in the team. He hasn't played since round 2, I believe. I really like him. I was watching him closely earlier in the season because he was in my fantasy team. Still is, actually. But he's an Irish defender, 189 centimetres, a bit medium-sized. I like the look of him. He took a really courageous mark against Geelong to win that game. He's a good player, O'Connell. Phillippo is in for his first game this season. He ended the season last year like a house on fire. He was fantastic ending last year. So if he can carry that form straight over, I'd be surprised considering he's missed the first 7 weeks with injury, but will be interesting. And then Hugh Boxall comes in for his debut. WA boy. I'm pleased to see Boxall make his debut. Putting up some insane VFL numbers, and I'm sure if he's out of the sub-vest, he'll make a real difference for St Kilda. That being said, while they're 3 exciting ins for the Saints, they are not groundbreaking. Compared to we've got 1 in, and it's groundbreaking. Oscar McDonald is out after a really good performance against Adelaide last week. Just sometimes how the cookie crumbles. And Luke Jackson's in. That's groundbreaking because before he got injured, he was our most informed player. One of the most informed players in the comp. He was dominating. And that was a solo ruck. The week Darcy came back, Jackson went. So to have these 2 guys in the team for the first time this season is going to be so fun to watch. In terms of injuries, the Saints are missing a few key guys, and particularly in the forward line. So Mason Wood, Dan Butler, Zane Cordy, Max King, all down there, are all big losses. Particularly the main pillar of King. I'll get on to an interesting stat about the Saints forward line a bit later. But then also Hunter Clark is missing, who, is sort of borderline 22. For the Dockers, no different to last week. It's just that one omission of McDonald. Banfield copped a 1 week suspension for Peel. Fife's out for 4 to 6 weeks. He's aiming to return just before the bye, but that'll be for Waffle. O'Driscoll, 2 more weeks. He should play versus the Giants. So after this, hopefully just 1 more week that we miss Noddy. Still no timelines for O'Meara and Sonny. Vossi, he's got 1 more week left on his suspension. And then if everything goes to plan, he'll be back at Peel next week. Because I'm hoping that none of our forwards get injured. And then Brandon Walker is still 10 weeks away. Let's get into the keys to win this game. And there are a few. And the Saints are a very, very unique team in sort of their makeup, which is going to be a very, very sort of key theme in these keys to win. First of all, stretch their rucks. So the omission of Isaac Keeler has left them small. And it's left their stocks a little bit thin in terms of pinch hitting, second rucking behind Rowan Marshall. So I'm expecting Sean Darcy to hold his own against Romo. I think, Romo is a fantastic ruck. In my opinion, should have been All-Australian last year. Was he All-Australian last? I can't even remember. It was either him or Cherry. Or was it Gorn? Either way, if he was or he wasn't, in my eyes, he was an All-Australian ruck last year. So he is no easy task, Romo. And Darcy's still coming off a low base. I thought he played decently against Nankervis. Got towed up by Gorn, but I thought he responded really well against O'Brien last week. We spoke about this a few weeks ago, how when Darcy came back, he'd go on a massive run of really physically demanding rucks that he'd play against. And another one's coming this week in Marshall. One thing that'll work in his favour is that when Marshall's out of the attack, Darcy will either go against their second ruck, who is probably going to be a Caminiti job, maybe. I mean, it's slim pickings, to be honest. Caminiti is not really the second ruck you want playing. So it's going to be either him going up against him or Luke Jackson, who, how well was he playing in the ruck earlier in the season? And we've actually given him that extra week to fully prepare. So I'm not really expecting LJ to have too much rust. I'm hoping he can just kick on like how he was playing. I think we can really try and win the ball out of the middle through that sort of ruck matchup that the Saints have got going. And I also think LJ will be able to stretch Howard, Wilkie and Webster and whoever else they've got down back. I just think he's a better player, a bit quicker, a bit more agile. And I think that's something that Jackson, not just Jackson, Amos and Tracy too, but especially Jackson can really use to his advantage. Another key to win, I was sort of looking, again, I just mentioned, their makeup is very, very unique. But one thing I wasn't really expecting was for their midfield to be so small. Not just in terms of height, but in terms of actual size, they are weak. I've literally got as my note here, bash them. We need to set the tone early by making it physical in the midfield. Because if you look at the guys that run through there, you've got Jack McRae, not necessarily the most physical. Jack Steele's probably in and around that mark, but not in great form. Mateus Filippo's coming back off an injury, and again, not the most physical. And then especially, a guy they've been running through there the past 2 weeks has been Nazai Wanganeen-Millero, who is a fantastic player. And when he runs off halfback, we'll talk about it a bit later, their run's going to be something we have to stop. But when Wanganeen-Millero moves into the midfield, not just him, but those sorts of types, and not necessarily the crash and bash guys that we sort of possess. In particular, the Hayden Youngs and the Matt Johnsons, who are both in really good form. So I think we need to set the tone early. I think we need to make it a physical game out the middle, and I think we need to take advantage of that sort of weaker midfield that the Saints possess. Another one I want to talk about, again, it's all based off their makeup. Keep the backs organised. So St Kilda's forward line poses a really unique threat. They don't have a single forward that's over 200 centimetres. In fact, their tallest is Caminiti, who's 196. And their leading goal kicker by a big stretch is Jack Higgins, who currently sits second in the Coleman, I believe, behind Tracy. Maybe someone's overtaken them. But, those two are definitely top three in the Coleman. This is the first time this season that we've played played a forward line without anybody over 200 centimetres. So we're 8 weeks in. This is the first time. So it's going to be a very, very challenging sort of task for our backs, considering we arguably have the tallest backline in the comp. The guys like Sharman and Owens have been playing far taller than they usually would. And with this small forward line, as I just said, with the really tall back line, it's going to be hard to combat them, and it's certainly going to be a task. I think we just need to make sure those medium-sized and versatile backmen are really up to their task. So, I'm talking about the Josh Drapers, the Heath Chapmans, the Luke Ryans. They're the sort of guys we really need to be looking at to do a big job on that forward line. Because I look at the Saints forward line, and while on paper it may not look like it'll get the job done against our backline on paper. I think their sort of small nature could really cause problems if we don't come prepared. So I'm sure that's something we will have prepared for, and it's something we've certainly got to be aware of. Another thing, stop the fucking runners. It's so frustrating whenever I make this point in the preview. I'm sorry, look, apologies for the cursed language, but the last 2 times I've made this point in the preview was round 1, the Geelong loss, and round 2, the Sydney loss. Geelong, I said to stop the runners, particularly Bailey Smith. Bailey Smith ran amok. Round 2, I said to stop Chad Warner and Isaac Heaney in their run. They run amok. They just split us open through the middle of the ground. Now, I'd like to think that our round 8 version, the team that's won 4 out of our last 5, is a lot different from the team we were rolling out in round 1 and round 2. That being said, this is a really crucial point we have to get right, because St Kilda have so many players of a similar mould, whether it's running through the middle, on the wings, off halfback. You've got guys like Ryan Burns, Nazai Wanganeen-Miller, Jack Sinclair, Brad Hill, Darcy Wilson, Marcus Windhager, that are such hard runners and can really set the tone, especially at home, especially on a Friday night. That's why I made the point earlier of making that midfield physical and outbodying them from the get-go, setting the tone. Because if we let them set the tone, the way that they set the tone is by running and making the game quick. Now, I'm okay with a quick game, but if the game's quick and it's on their terms, on their home deck, like we haven't won in Melbourne this season, or in Victoria, we have to get on top of that, because whether that's, some of our outside runners maybe doing a roll on a Wanganeen-Miller or a Sinclair, who are some of their more dangerous ball users, I'm not sure. Windhager's going to be an interesting one, because I'm assuming he tags someone on the inside. My bet's on Caleb Sarong. Yes, Anti Brayshaw was probably our in-form mid, but Sarong, Anti Brayshaw wouldn't be playing the footy he's playing without Sarong's in and under grunt work. So that's the guy you've got to stop. And we toggled a pod a few weeks ago, stop Sarong, stop Freo. I think it was after the Melbourne loss, because that's just what you've got to do. James Jordan's done it. Tom Sparrow's done it. It feels like a theme that whenever we lose, it's because Caleb Sarong's being tagged. I'm not sure. Tom Atkins may have done a job on him in round 1 as well. So, yeah, it's not a coincidence that whenever Sarong gets tagged, that we lose. So we've got to work around that. I think Windhager will go to him, and I'm sure we'll be prepared this time around. Because we could win last season with Sarong being tagged. For some reason, this season, it just hasn't been the same. My tip, Fremantle by 25. As I said earlier, this just has to be a statement victory. There are no excuses. You look back to the Ross Lyon Freo team from the early 2010s, our sort of motto, our mantra was anytime, anywhere. We just have to be that team. We can't win a flag from WA if we're not going to be that team, or go deep in finals, or whatever our ambitions are, which should be the ultimate. We can't, if we're not going to be an anywhere, anytime team, then who cares? Friday night at Marvel, St Kilda. St Kilda have a lot of media scrutiny. They'll be up for this game. They've got a debutant. They've got a guy who's coming back from injury for the first time in 6 months. They've got a guy who's back for the first time since round 2. They'll have some hungry and quick guys in there. Hugo Garcia, who's still on the team after being subbed out after a quarter last week. They will have hungry guys. We've just got to rock up like the good team we are, because we are, I'm saying it, we are, I don't care what the result is tonight. We are far better than St Kilda. We are a better team than St Kilda. Far better. And we have to actually show it, because we are a far better team than Melbourne. We didn't show it. We are a far better team than Sydney. We didn't show it. Doesn't matter if we're a better team. We have to show it. We have to move to 5-3. And can you just imagine if we lose tonight and we've got Collingwood on a Thursday night next week? The Pies are going to have a big game this Saturday night to rev themselves up. It would put our confidence. I wouldn't hope it puts our confidence in the gutter, but I'm sure it would take a mental hit on the players. So we just have to win this game. Rock up, do the business. I've got us winning by 25, and I hope we're building in maturity by the week, and I'm hoping we can notch up our first win in Victoria for the year, because it's really important if we want to go deep in 2025. Leave your thoughts on the game down in the comments. I'll be live for the watch-along on my channel, UCAT, tonight if you want to come watch the game with me, and I'll also be live for the fan cams after the game, where you can come have a yarn, win, lose or draw. Hopefully it's a dub. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time. Cheers.